There is something you do that almost nobody sees. When you need help, you don't ask. You find a way to manage it alone. Again, you tell people you're fine. You minimize what you're carrying. You wait until you're almost completely underwater before you even consider reaching out. And even then, something inside you tightens, closes, pulls back. Not because you're proud, not because you're stubborn, not because you don't want support, but because somewhere along the way, needing people started to feel like a risk you couldn't afford, and your mind never forgot that. Psychology says struggling to ask for help is rarely just a personality trait. It's a pattern, a protective one, built early, built for reasons that made complete sense at the time. There are 5 deep psychological traits that develop in people who find it almost impossible to reach out. And once you understand them, you'll finally stop blaming yourself. The first trait is the deepest one. And for most people, it didn't arrive with a clear memory attached. It came through something quieter than that. Trait 1. You learned that your needs were inconvenient. It came through accumulation. The sighs that followed your questions, the irritation that arrived before the answer, the emotional distance that appeared precisely when you needed someone close. The times you reached towards someone and felt them, almost imperceptibly, pull back. Nobody may have ever said it directly, but you felt it anyway. And slowly, the way children absorb everything, without being able to name what they're absorbing, your mind began forming a conclusion so quiet, it barely registered as a thought. My needs make things harder for people. That conclusion didn't stay in childhood. It never does. It followed you into every relationship, every friendship, every adult moment where support was available, and something in you still couldn't quite reach for it. Because your nervous system no longer experiences help as something natural, it experiences it as something costly, something that has to be earned before it can be accepted, something that might, even when given freely, leave you feeling ashamed afterward for having needed it at all. This is why some people would rather carry something until it breaks them than ask someone nearby to simply share the weight. Not because they don't want support, but because support, somewhere deep in how they learned to survive, stopped feeling like relief and started feeling like exposure. So they became the person who says, "Don't worry about me," before anyone has even offered to worry. The person who only shares the lighter version of what they're carrying. The person who gives others endless, patient understanding and finds it almost impossible to receive the same in return. On the surface, this looks like strength. Underneath, it is often grief. The grief of a person who learned before they had the language to question it, that needing anything from other people could make them feel unwanted. That leaves a mark, and the nervous system never forgets. And when you spend years carrying things alone, and surviving, the mind draws its own conclusion, one that feels like wisdom, but comes with a hidden cost. Trait 2. You trust yourself more than you trust support. Here's something that's easy to miss about people who struggle to ask for help. They are often not incapable, not fragile, not lost. In fact, many of them are unusually capable, resourceful, precise. They know how to keep going when going feels impossible. They've survived things, privately, that most people have never been asked to survive. And after doing that long enough, the mind draws its own conclusion. I can only truly rely on myself. From the outside, this looks like resilience. People call it maturity, independence, an admirable kind of self-sufficiency. But there's a cost hidden inside it. The more a person relies exclusively on themselves, the less natural receiving support feels. Not because help isn't available, but because the emotional process of accepting it, the surrender of control, the trust it requires, the vulnerability it demands, starts to feel increasingly unfamiliar, increasingly risky. Because here's what self-reliant people privately fear about letting someone else in. Will they understand? Will they judge? Will they make it worse? Will they show up once and then disappear when it actually matters? So instead of risking that disappointment, they stay contained. It's okay. I'll handle it. Even when they're exhausted, even when the weight is too much, even when help is standing right there, available, genuine, asking nothing in return. Because psychologically, control can feel a lot safer than care. That's why people with this trait don't just struggle to ask for help. They struggle to fully relax even when help arrives. They may say yes with their words while their body stays tense. They may accept kindness and immediately feel the pull to pay it back, to justify it, to prove they deserved it. That's not coldness. That's not selfishness. That's what happens when self-reliance stops being a choice and becomes the only home the nervous system has ever fully trusted. But for some people, it goes even further than distrust. Asking for help doesn't just feel hard. It feels like standing in a room suddenly without walls. Trait 3. You confuse vulnerability with danger. Because underneath the request itself, underneath the words "I need help," is something even more exposed, being seen in a moment of genuine need. And for people with certain emotional histories, that visibility carries real risk. Maybe when you opened up before, you were dismissed. Maybe your pain was compared to someone else's and found smaller. Maybe you were taught, directly or through years of quiet observation, that emotions were something to be managed privately, contained, never displayed where someone might mistake them for weakness. So now, when the thought of asking for help surfaces, your mind doesn't just think about the support. It thinks about the exposure, the honesty required, the admission of need, the moment of saying clearly to another person, "I cannot carry this alone." And if your nervous system has learned to associate those states with shame, with the particular pain of being vulnerable and finding nothing safe on the other side, then asking for help stops feeling like reaching out. It starts feeling like stepping into something dangerous. So what develops instead? High functionality, high composure, a private interior life that almost nobody fully sees. You process alone. You break down alone. You recover alone. And then you return to the world looking, for all appearances, completely fine. Not because you want to feel isolated, but because emotional privacy became the most reliable form of protection you ever found. People around you say, "You never share what you're going through. You always seem okay. You should open up more." What they don't understand is that opening up is not simply a communication skill for you. It's a risk calculation. And when vulnerability has been paired with pain often enough, the mind does exactly what it was designed to do. It protects you. And sometimes, underneath all of that protection, there's a belief that goes even deeper. Not just that asking is risky, but that your pain simply isn't yours to share. Trait 4. You feel responsible for managing your pain alone. There's a particular kind of person who feels almost guilty needing support at all. Not because they don't feel the weight of what they're carrying, but because somewhere inside, they've come to believe quietly, completely, without ever consciously choosing it, that their struggles are theirs alone to solve. Their pain is theirs alone to carry. Their breaking points are theirs alone to manage, in private, before anyone else has to be inconvenienced by them. This usually forms in people who became emotionally responsible too early. Maybe you were the one who stayed calm while everyone else fell apart. The easy one, the mature one, the one who sensed the tension in a room and made the silent decision not to add to it. Maybe you could feel the weight the adults around you were already carrying, so you carried yours separately, quietly, without complaint. And if that pattern continues long enough, it stops being behavior. It becomes identity. You stop experiencing support as something you deserve. You start experiencing it as something other people need more than you do. So when your own pain surfaces, your first instinct isn't to reach outward. It's to minimize. Other people have it worse. It's not that serious. I should be able to handle this. I don't want to bother anyone. This internal dialogue, where you invalidate yourself before anyone else gets the chance to, becomes so automatic you don't even notice it happening. You just know that when something hurts, the instinct is to make it smaller, to make sure nobody has to rearrange themselves because of what you feel. And the painful irony of this trait, it almost always lives in the most caring people. People who would show up immediately for someone else, who are compassionate, dependable, emotionally available in every direction except inward. Because when the pain is theirs, the rules change entirely. Suddenly, they become harsh with themselves, suspicious of their own needs, quietly embarrassed by their own limits. Not because they're hypocritical, but because somewhere in who they became, They learned that their role was to contain pain, not share it. And over time, that creates someone who looks, from every angle, incredibly strong while feeling on the inside, profoundly and privately alone. And underneath every single one of these traits, there's often one thing holding it all together: an identity that was built, brick by brick, around not needing anyone. Trait 5. Your independence is part of your survival identity. For many people who struggle to ask for help, independence is not simply a preference. It's identity, the deepest kind, the kind that formed not from choice but from necessity. Maybe you were praised for being the one who never needed much, admired for handling things alone, respected for your composure, your capability, your quiet self-sufficiency. Maybe the people around you only fully saw you when you were useful or strong or contained. And if that happened enough, the mind does something very understandable. It merges survival behavior with self-image. You no longer simply act independent. You become the independent one. And once that identity hardens, asking for help stops feeling like a practical decision. It starts feeling like a betrayal of who you are. Because if you're the strong one, what happens when you need something? If you're the one who holds it together, what happens when you fall apart? If you're always the helper, what happens when you need to be helped? So, you stay in character. Even when part of you is exhausted, even when part of you wants nothing more than for someone to simply notice without you having to ask that you are not entirely fine. And this is the hidden cost of survival identity. You built a version of yourself that kept you safe, that earned you respect, that gave you a role in rooms where belonging felt uncertain. But now, that same version may be keeping you disconnected. Because there's a real difference between healthy independence and defensive independence. Healthy independence says, I can do things on my own, and I can also receive support. Defensive independence says, if I can't do it alone, I feel exposed, ashamed, unsafe. One comes from confidence, the other comes from fear. And most people who struggle to ask for help never realize that the strength they're protecting, the self-sufficiency they've built their entire identity around, may have originally been constructed in response to disappointment, to emotional inconsistency, to environments where needing people simply wasn't safe. Your resilience is real, your capability is real, your strength is real. But that doesn't mean it came from peace. Sometimes it came from necessity. And once you understand that, once you can look at your independence clearly enough to ask, did I choose this, or did I build it because I had no other option? Something begins to shift. Not toward helplessness, not away from strength, but toward something quieter and more honest. The possibility of being strong and supported at the same time. So let's bring it all together, because if you saw yourself in any of this, there's something important psychology wants you to understand. You were not born this way. You were not wired wrong. You did not develop these patterns from weakness or pride or some fundamental inability to trust. You developed them because, at some point, needing people came with consequences, because support felt uncertain, because vulnerability felt dangerous, because the environments you moved through early, formative, deeply influential taught you, without ever using those words, that needing less was safer than needing more. So you learned to need less, to say less, to expect less, to carry more. And maybe that version of you was necessary once, but it may not be the version of you that heals. Because healing rarely begins with becoming someone different. It begins with understanding clearly, without shame, with something closer to compassion, why you became who you are. You are allowed to have needs without apologizing for them. You are allowed to receive care without earning it through exhaustion first. You are allowed to ask for help and still be strong, still be capable, still be the person everyone around you relies on. Because real strength is not silent suffering. Real strength is not carrying everything alone until something inside you quietly gives way. Real strength includes the full capacity to be human. And being human means there will be seasons, not failures, not weaknesses, but seasons when you need someone to hold part of what you've been carrying. The opposite of hyper-independence is not helplessness. It's trust. And for people like you, people who learned earliest and most thoroughly, that support was something to survive without trust, is often the hardest, most important, most quietly courageous thing to rebuild. You were never weak for needing support. You were only trying to survive in the way your mind learned best. And now, slowly, gently, without shame, you get to learn something different. If this video finally gave language to something you've carried quietly for years, there's more here that was made for you. This channel exists for people who feel deeply, protect carefully, and have spent too long surviving without enough support. Subscribe. You're in the right place. Drop a comment and tell me which of these 5 traits felt the most personal. I read every single one.